They say counseling saves marriages, but what if it just makes things worse? For us, counseling about our sex life did not fix the problem. It actually deepened the divide. Let's get into it.
Coming
When
up
you're
next
broken,
in
when you're
today's episode.
hurting, sometimes I couldn't be in your shoes because I was currently in mine. I had been in it so long that I felt like I was suffocating. Like if I was so afraid because I know me.
Right.
I know me,
I know.
and because I know me, I know
You were
I was I
so
was
hard to be right.
I was struggling so
Just
hard, and
right.
I'm like,
Yeah.
man, I can just hang in there. Sitting in that room, and recounting the moments even today, sitting in that room, honestly, I didn't even hear half of what he was saying to you.
Able to see just how desperate you were.
Yeah.
I was able to see just how hurt you were. I do not and will not ever be able to appreciate his careless approach.
Hey, what to do, great people? I'm Pastor Ken. Thank you so much for streaming with us. I want you to know that Dana and I are greatly appreciative of all of the comments, the subscribers. I know we are a new channel. I thought I'd just stop here and just restate the purpose and the focus of Bennett Life TV. As a person who has been married for 18 years, I'm a serial entrepreneur, and I'm also involved in ministry. I have a church here that I've planted in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. When Dana and I were considering putting together this channel, we had one objective in mind. It was to find a way to answer specific questions in the four areas that provide both highs and lows in life. That's marriage, ministry, mental health, and money. So if you're getting any value from the content that is shared today, I want you to do us a solid. Why don't you hit the subscribe button, turn on those alerts, and then let us know what you're getting from today's episode. I want you to know that we're praying for you. Thank you so much for checking out our brand new channel. Back to the episode.
So today we're talking about something that is near and dear to our heart, something that we have had to struggle with a little while, but I believe that our struggles has produced wisdom and content that we can share with you guys today. In our previous episode, we just kind of talked about sexless marriages, but in this episode, we're going to spend a little bit more time talking about that fourth piece of advice that we gave people where they needed to seek help. Now, I'm just being candidly honest. We went to a therapist, but counseling almost made matters worse for us. And so let's kind of get into that. Therapy, what comes to mind?
I'm a huge advocate for therapy.
Okay.
However, I think when we went for specifically for the challenges we were having in our sex life, it is probably the absolute worst therapy session I've ever experienced.
This is where we have to disagree, but go ahead.
Okay, and
I
that's
disagree.
fine. We have two different takeaways from
We
it.
do. We do.
Two different people that I think were going in with two different issues and agendas.
Hmm.
And so I think you felt heard and validated, and I felt trivialized and unprotected.
I understand. I
Yeah.
understand. We can get into that here in just a second. Let's get to first off the source. So, of course, we've been married 18 years.
Yes.
We just recently celebrated our wedding anniversary,
Mm-hmm.
and so we've seen a lot of victories in our lives. And one of those areas that we've gotten victory in is in this particular area. Now, early into our marriage, we struggled in the area of our sex
Mm-hmm.
life together. It just was rough. You had some challenges going on medically. I had some trauma going on
Yeah.
that needed to be vetted out through the power of God and through a therapist. But there was something that a specific event that took place in our marriage very early on that became kind of the activator
Mm-hmm.
of the lack of sexual intimacy that you and I experienced together. Let's get
Absolutely.
into that for a little bit.
Yeah, very early into our marriage, we got pregnant and we were excited about that. However, early into the pregnancy, we had a miscarriage.
Mhm.
Um, for most of the people who know, I was married before, and so this was my second marriage, but this was actually my fourth miscarriage. And it was difficult. If you've never experienced a miscarriage, there is an amalgam of feelings
Mm-mm.
that happen, and there's a lot that happens with your body
Right,
physically
right,
when you're
right.
going through a miscarriage. You have a huge plummet in hormones, and you feel the loss. It's no different than losing a physical child that's actually birthed, because from the moment you know you're pregnant, I think as a woman, you begin to now start feeling instantly like a mom.
Mm.
It's not just when you hold your baby in your arms. I know for me. And so this was now the fourth time that this has happened. And it was devastating to me
Mm.
because, like I said in the previous episode, I felt like finally I got it right.
Mm.
I felt like all the stars had aligned, that God was shining down on me. I had this wonderful friend who I was blessed enough to marry. Our blended family was going well. The
Mm.
kids liked each other. We had a great church home. Business was going well. We had just moved into a beautiful home, which to date is still probably one of my favorite
It
properties that
is,
we've
yeah.
lived in. And now I'm getting ready to have a baby, not teenage mom having a
Mhm.
baby, not unwed mom having a baby, not having a baby married in an abusive marriage. No, I'm finally pregnant and having a baby in the perfect context.
Wow.
And then I have a
Mm.
miscarriage. And so it was devastating to me. I think you felt the loss as well. The joy was snatched away
Mhm.
from you as well, but you handled it completely
Oh,
different.
absolutely. Yeah, 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 for sure. I agree. I to this day still sometimes uh, uh, the only word that comes to mind is forget that that moment happened, because one, God replaced it.
Mm-hmm.
God gave us the gift of Gabriella.
Mm-hmm.
That shortly after, not long, I believe I had been praying and asking God, God, we're gonna have a child together. We're gonna have a little girl. And
Mm-hmm.
I saw Gabriella in my dreams before she ever entered into your womb. And so I feel like Gabriella was that gift to
Right.
us. And so many times I actually forget that we did go through a season where we were grieving, because grief does play a role in the area of intimacy between a husband and a wife. I do
Right.
believe that. And so, now while in the experience and in the season of struggling with this, I did not see
Mm-hmm.
that you were, low key grieving a child that yet miscarried.
Right.
And one can only, I can't fathom the feeling because I'm not a
Mm-hmm.
woman. So as much as I sympathize with you, I
Mm-hmm.
really have no understanding of it. And thankfully, over the years, you've helped me come to understand. And I believe that also became one of the ways that we were able to move more so in a direction towards healing in this area of our sexual intimacy, was that I got a chance to really get a chance to know what you were feeling, hear your heart, hear, even the doctor's reports, going to the doctors,
Right.
with you, you inviting me into your life of what it was you were going through, helped me sympathize and be compassionate.
Right.
And in a season, I had to put my needs on a shelf.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is so important beyond just intimacy. I think some couples don't understand that there are times in your marriage where you have to put your needs on a shelf for the betterment of somebody else.
Right.
That's where love is demonstrated, is that when you're willing to say, right now, this isn't about me. This is about making sure she's good, making sure he's good. Even for our children, we do that for our children. But sometimes I find that couples are unwilling to do that. But do you want to kind of talk about the measure of selflessness that marriage requires, especially when you need what you need when you need it?
Absolutely. We say this all the time, that marriage is not for childish people and it's not for selfish people.
Hmm.
It does require you to um, love your partner. And sometimes that means you put your needs
Hmm.
at bay for the betterment or for the benefit of the entire relationship. People say, oh, marriage is 50-50. No, it's not.
Hmm.
It's 100-100. You giving 100, me giving 100.
Absolutely.
And
Agree.
sometimes that looks different.
Yes.
Sometimes my 100 is really only carrying 20% of the load,
Mm,
and you're carrying the other 80. Does
that's
that
right.
make sense?
Absolutely.
And it vacillates. Some days you're up, some days I'm down. But it really is for selfless people.
Hmm.
Marriage is for selfless people. If you are a person who always has to have what you want, when you want it, how you want it, or else you pitch a fit and act a fool, marriage is not for you.
That's good. That's
And
good.
a lot of times in marriage, you have one person who's more the giver,
Mm.
a person who likes to, is the peacemaker. There's just different personalities that tend to complement each other. But you cannot be in a marriage and be a taker only
That's good. That's
and
good.
never want to give back to your partner or pour into it.
I think one of the areas that prove who you are is in the area of intimacy with your spouse.
Mhm.
It is something about sex or the lack thereof that causes you to really see what's on the inside of you. And I know
Mhm.
for me, the topic of sex, the conversation of sex was very often in the early years of our marriage met with tension. It was met
Yeah,
with tension, silence, frustration, anger. And instead of us bringing us closer together, we actually left the room feeling more misunderstood.
absolutely.
And when I got married, this was the last thing that I thought I would be struggling with. As a young boy who's in his 20s and excited about his relationship with God, trying to live a life of integrity. I struggled being single, saved, and in the church. So when I got, so when I got, watch it now, don't you do it, don't you do it. Hold it together in Jesus' name. Amen. So when I got married, the last thing I thought I would have to wrestle with is being intimate with my spouse, being intimate with my wife. But as the Lord would have it, it would be the one area that He would use to challenge and test, improve, sanctify, and really bring healing and wholeness to.
You
Um,
say that, and I want people to hear
mhm.
that statement is a little bit deeper than what you
Go ahead.
said.
Go ahead.
Marriage really is a mirror for what God wants to heal.
Mm,
It will really show you the area of your life. If you don't know where you jacked up at, your marriage will show you. Your spouse will show you where you're selfish.
mhm.
And I think that the struggle for us in the beginning part of our marriage in this area was because both of us needed so much healing in that area.
It's good.
And it wasn't until we got into something that was safe enough for God to heal it and for us to actually reveal it and say, God,
Right.
here's my hand.
Right.
I'm jacked up in this area. I need you to fix it because I'm with somebody that I love. I don't want to keep hurting them because I'm broken in this area.
Mhm.
So I think for couples, if you just take a moment and look at where in your marriage, where God is really trying to show you he wants to work in that area of your life. 9 out of 10, if you're clueless, ask your spouse. Usually your spouse is a good mirror. Your marriage is a good mirror for where you need to work and allow God in.
That's good. That's good. One of the things I had to learn was when I got married, to you, remarried. In my previous marriage, we were involved every night.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the barometer of my expectation
Mm-hmm.
getting into this marriage that you and I have together. Um, which means that you can be physically involved with someone and not be connected
Not
to them.
connected. Yeah.
People say, if I can just get it every night, I'm good. That's not true. I was a guy that was very heavily involved with my ex-spouse. The issue was not sex.
Mm-hmm.
We just were not connected. We were not compatible. I
Right.
think sometimes we confuse sexual compatibility for someone really being the person for you.
Mm-hmm.
You, you,
Mm-hmm.
and I had to learn that, and I learned quickly in this marriage that was a mistake. And then what ended up happening was counseling made us talk about it, but it didn't help us create. From your angle, you felt like we really didn't get much progress out of it. And I really want to talk to or help a couple that's listening to me right now and just kind of talk through some things. So we had to kind of learn on our own. We have gotten advice from many people.
Mm-hmm.
And there are people that I trust, that I love, that I don't mind sharing, what I'm up against and what I'm dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
But I also had to learn sometimes there are some lessons that God is going to require you to take for you to learn within the struggle. And you just got to see the wisdom on the other side of the
Right.
breakthrough. And I felt like that was the circumstance for us in this particular area of our intimacy, was that the lesson was revealed, or the points and the wisdom was given on the other side of the breakthrough, which is how we're able to sit down and candidly talk about it.
Right.
Because one, there's no shame here, you know.
Right. Absolutely. I will say that although I did not, I walked away from the counseling session feeling very hopeless.
Mm,
I actually walked away and said, we're not gonna make it. We're not gonna make it. But what it did was I did get to hear how serious this was for you.
mm,
That I can, so I'm trying, there were things that I could pull from that session, although in my mind it was a disaster. Because I remember we left there and went immediately to a restaurant in tears.
you did. You did.
We sat in that restaurant in tears, and that was the most hopeless I had ever felt in our time together. I didn't have any solutions. Um, I was depleted.
Yeah.
I felt defeated.
I think what for me, what was a shocker to the therapist, just to give a little context, I had confided in someone that was a friend. And in an effort to assist, I asked, "Hey, do you mind sitting with the both of us?" Now, what's crazy is when I share with the friend assumed that one, I was addicted to pornography. He thought that he was shocked that I had not stepped out on you
Mhm.
as my wife and that I was not addicted to pornography. And I candidly, as we're talking, remember the conversation. He said, "So you're not like watching any porn and you don't have anything on the side?" I said, "No, the only person I want is my wife." I
Mhm.
says, "And I don't know how to keep telling her that.
Mhm.
It's although I feel rejected, she's the woman I want."
Mhm.
So I believe going into the session, that was somewhat of a sense of I need to defend, or a sense
Yeah,
of,
and I felt
because
that.
you
He
know
defended you very well. Mhm.
now that's not what I asked him to do, but I felt like I had been saying the same thing for years and you weren't hearing me, and I was just at my wit's end. I needed you to hear what was hard.
Right.
And while I will never let anybody abuse you or talk crazy to you or berate you or put you in any circumstance that I would not myself do to you, I definitely wouldn't allow anybody else to do it. I just felt like in that session, that was the day where you needed to put your big girl clothes on and just hear the real, the raw, the truth. And that's to me how I left. I left like finally somebody said what I needed. You know what I'm saying? And
Right.
I and
I get where you're coming from. I still don't agree with his approach. And here's one of the things that I will say. We're saying counseling.
okay.
I want to be really clear. This person is not a licensed therapist. This person was, and I'm going to clean it up. This person was a pastor who had gone to some courses to counsel couples. There is absolutely nothing wrong with that.
Hmm.
However, I think our situation was past that. I think
What do you mean
we
by
should have
that,
said, I
past that?
think we were so far gone. It's just like us. We'll sit with couples and we give spiritual advice. We are not counselors. If we determine that that couple is struggling with things that are going to need long-term help
Hmm.
and are struggling with things that are beyond our scope of expertise, we refer them to a
That's true.
counselor. I felt like we were further along and we were outside the scope of his expertise.
I was on
I
fire.
honestly
I feel
feel
like we were
like
on fire, and we needed
okay,
help wherever
so
we needed it.
we needed we needed somebody to take us to a trauma center, not to the doctor's office.
Okay.
And I felt like he was defending his friend. And I feel like he may have been a little bit over his head
Mm.
because I remember specifically some of the things he said to me.
What were some of the things?
I know you've been molested. I know you've been raped. Let me apologize for every man that has ever hurt you in your life. I'm sorry, but you're going to have to sleep with your husband.
Mm.
For someone who had not processed the depth of
Mm.
the wound that that had on my life, for you to be that flippant
Mm.
with it, that hurt. For this to be a You just need to do your wifely duties because it's killing your husband. I heard that message, but the framing of it was so callous that it was damaging.
Wow.
It's almost like, in our shower, we use the loofah, the little puff thing sometimes to bathe with. That's fine for your skin. But imagine if I took a Brillo pad out and replaced your loofah with a Brillo pad and started rubbing your skin.
Mm.
That's what he did. He was trying to, the effort is to get you clean, the effort, but you scarred me in the process. You were too rough with your approach.
Well, I,
And
I,
when you didn't jump in and be like, yo, bro,
mm.
hold up. That's my gal. I was like, oh, so you just gonna let talk to me like this?
Oh Jesus, we got
Yeah, that's how I
we got
felt.
we got to blurt that out.
It's okay. You can beep it out.
It's-
You gonna let him, you gonna, so then I was like, oh, okay. So then it made me feel like, well, what all have you been telling this man? There's obviously been conversations about me that prior to this meeting, because this dude is going hard for you. This ain't just no neutral territory. And so I can say I'm grateful that it happened now
Mm,
because I was able to see just how desperate you were.
yeah,
I was able to see just how hurt you were. I do not and will not ever be able to appreciate his careless approach.
I can respect that. And let me just say, one, I extend my sincerest apologies. I didn't see it as that at the time. When you're broken, when you're hurting, sometimes I couldn't be in your shoes because I was currently in mine. I had been in it so long that I felt like I was suffocating. Like
Mhm.
if I was so afraid because I know me.
Right.
I know me,
I know.
and because I know me, I know
You were
I
trying
was I
so
was
hard to be right,
I was struggling so
to stay
hard, and
right.
I'm like,
Yeah.
man, I can just hang in there, just hang in there. And I was at my wit's end, and I'm like, if this does not work, I don't know what I'm going to do,
Yeah.
because I'm a guy that has a high sex drive. I'm a guy that needs what he needs when he needs it, and my longing was for you, and it has always been for you. I just did not trust that where I was with that lack of area fulfilled and being that vulnerable,
Right.
that I just didn't trust me. And so sitting in that room and recounting the moments even today, sitting in that room, honestly, I didn't even hear half of what he was saying to you.
Mhm.
I didn't. I was in the room, but my mind was somewhere else. I'm like, okay, this is the last ditch attempt. If this don't work, I don't know what we're gonna do. Now, mind you, we've done everything. We've read books, we have prayed, we
Mhm.
have we have talked with individuals about it. We have, and it's not, once again, we had bad experiences intimately. And that wasn't the issue. It wasn't that the experiences was
Because he
not intent.
shifted that.
Yeah, no,
He
we
said, well, do you enjoy sex with your husband? And it's amazing. He was
mhm,
like, really? I was like, yeah, I love having sex with my husband. That's not the problem. The problem is our libidos don't match.
mm,
And it's spiraled into something that is incredibly unhealthy at this
mhm,
point. And so I felt like I walked into a scenario where I was beat up. I
well,
was the problem. There was no addressing of your past trauma. He didn't bring up your rape. He only brought up mine. He didn't bring up your context. He only brought up mine because I think his objective was to defend his friend.
yeah,
Because I think he could see the male point of view.
yeah.
And so, thank God that
Because then let me ask you this then. Since you talk about how horrible it was, what happened where, because I feel like after that session, it clicked. So tell me what
um
happened, because in my mind I'm thinking, yo, I need to send you an offering. I need to take you to dinner. I need to. You know what I'm saying? Now we didn't talk about this immediately. I don't think
No.
I am only hearing
We
this
were in two
years.
separate cars,
Yeah.
because I was coming after
Work.
work.
Yeah.
So I cried my way home. You cried your way home.
Yeah.
Um,
So what clicked? So if the session was that horrible, what clicked? Why did you come home and, you know,
I
give it to me, baby? What
I think
what
I
happened?
think we're recounting things a little differently because I
Okay.
don't remember there being a click because
So
I remember being very hurt that you didn't defend me.
okay.
I think if anything, I was just like, you know what, whatever. Just stop saying no. If he wants to have sex, we'll have sex.
Hmm.
I was so defeated, I didn't even care anymore. It
Wow.
was just like, fine. I don't have to get anything out of it. If it because I remember the analogy that he used with his hands
Yeah,
around
he
your
actually
neck and
physically.
talking about
Mhm.
I'm literally choking the life out of you by not sleeping with you and all of that. So I'm like, okay, fine, Dana, enough. Just just sleep with the man. And that's where I was at.
Okay. Hmm. So what would you say to somebody watching right now that is in that circumstance where literally, you know, it's just hard? What would you say?
I would say that don't stop there. Don't that that's a dangerous place to settle.
Hmm.
And
Just sleep with your spouse?
to just be like, fine, just like Miss Celia in The Color Purple, he climb on top of me and do his business. Just come on. Just
Mm.
that's a very dangerous
It
place to
is.
settle.
It is.
You'd almost do better just still saying no. Like to me, they're equally
Because
as dangerous. Disconnect.
there's a disconnect, and then there's a measure of rejection, and that's one of the things that I was clear with you about, because we've had those moments and I just stop mid and say, yo,
Don't worry about
don't
it.
worry about it.
Yeah.
If you can't be in it, and my thing was, is where's your head?
Yeah.
Like, is your head in this moment, or is this, I don't just want your body, I want your mind. I want to be intimately involved with all of you.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And we just sometimes have to talk about that. So I
So
guess.
so I remember seeing two things happen. I had a conversation with Lady Vernon,
Okay.
and I saw a video, and I wish I remembered this young lady's life or name because it was really life changing for me. She was talking about how we've got to get as women, we've got to get out of this headspace that sex is just for our spouses,
Mm,
that you deserve to have a good sex life too. And I
mm,
think up until that point, I was just trying to fix it for you. I wasn't even worried about me. And even with me being like, okay, yeah, I'm available, come on. That was for you. I wasn't trying to get anything out of it. I wasn't worried about getting anything out of it. I did not ever want to have to sit in a room again and have somebody beat me up because I wasn't
mm,
sleeping with my husband. So I was just fine. Let's check this box because I can't fix it. I don't know what's wrong with me. I don't know what's wrong with my libido. I don't know why I don't want to have sex. But this has caused so much of an issue that my husband's either going to leave me and cheat on me, or he's willing to let somebody talk to me crazy. Which in full clear, he wasn't like cussing me out or
yeah,
talking to me
yeah,
crazy. I just think he's very callous and
mm,
insensitive. Um, I just was so defeated. So I said, you know what? You're right. I deserve to enjoy my sex life.
mhm,
Wait a minute. Why am I making this all about him? I deserve to get something out of this too. And I became for once a little, and I know people are like, well, you've been selfish because you hadn't been sleeping with him. No, I became a little selfish in that I want to fix this for me too.
mm,
And so I began looking at, and that's when I really began diving into what all was wrong with me physically, what I needed to do to change that, what was really broken,
mm,
because I'm like, even if this don't work, which I never did not want this to work, but I'm like, I deserve to have a good sex life. I deserve to have an orgasm. I deserve to enjoy my spouse. What is going on here? The devil is a liar if he
mm,
thinks I'm getting ready to stay in a sexless marriage, a miserable marriage, a marriage where I just fine. If he wants it, he can have it, and then I roll over and go to sleep. No, that is not what God designed. And so it wasn't. this.
Mhm.
I think we survived and things got better in spite of this. I think the only thing the therapy that session did for me was show me just how desperate you were.
Hmm. Wow.
So
That's a
from that
that's that's
standpoint,
that's a bomb right there. That there was a measure of desperation,
mm-hmm,
definitely, because I just didn't trust me.
mm-hmm,
Although, I was committed to you and would never, my daily confession is I'm committed
mm-hmm,
to Dana Ray Bennett, come
mm-hmm.
hell or high water.
Can I
But
say something
it's
too? Because I
sure.
know some people may watch this and be like, well, it seemed like he won a cookie or a gold star for doing what he's supposed to do. He's supposed to stay faithful. And that's true.
It's true.
We once we say I do, we are supposed to be committed to each other and have no other partners outside of each other. That's true. But it does take a whole lot of self-regulation and self-control to go years without getting your needs met,
Mhm.
years feeling like your partner doesn't want to be with you and isn't attracted to you. So I do commend you for staying faithful, because we hear stories all the time of people who step out on each other for far less than that,
Well, well,
far less than that.
well.
So I commend you for being the type of man who says, I'm gonna be the husband I'm supposed to be, even if I'm not getting what I feel I deserve and is rightfully mine in the context of marriage.
Mm,
Sometimes people come into this thinking, well, if they don't do their part, I don't have to do my part. And that's not true.
mm.
I'm still a wife, even if you don't act like a husband.
Well,
You're still a husband, even if I don't act like a wife.
it's good.
And it's not contingent on who's doing the right
Mm,
thing when.
mm.
It's contingent on my vow. And that's the thing I think people miss, is that here comes our dog.
Levi.
Here's the thing I think people miss, is that we didn't make a vow just to each other, we made a vow to God as well. And so you're not just breaking your vow to me, you're breaking your vow to God also when you choose to not be the husband you said you would be.
Well,
So for the person, it's like, huh, child, please. He just wants a pat on the back. He was supposed to do that anyway. Well, you did it very hard, in a very hard situation, circumstances.
it was tough. It was tough. It was tough. And one of the things that I had to monitor carefully was one of the things I refused to at a certain point. I just cut off any temptation towards pornography, any temptation towards anything that added a measure of even more division and divisiveness in my home.
Hmm.
I just decided, God, what this is a lot I have right now, and this is what I got to kind of walk through. So what I want to do is, some things that we have learned over the years is I want to at least give the people some lessons that we've learned through our own process.
Right.
And hopefully these lessons can help really stretch them and prove them and challenge them to go back into their marriages and make a decision to say, you know what, there's still hope. And if I don't say anything else, I think I want to make sure that they hear me say that
Oh,
there's still
absolutely.
hope even for a sexless marriage.
Absolutely.
I am living proof that there's still hope for a sexless marriage. So the first thing that I want to say to you is this: is be open to what the absence of sex reveals to you.
Yeah.
One of the things that I did not realize is how much I had idolized sex.
Mm,
Sex had really been a form of idolatry in my own eyes. It was because I told myself it is something I need and I cannot live without it. Getting married didn't change the unhealthy relationship with that idol. And I know it sounds crazy to hear. How could sex be an idol if it's a gift from God? God thing can become a bad thing when it's used in a way that's unhealthy.
right.
No different than as much as I love food and love fried chicken and love a good meal, too much of that, the Bible calls it sin, gluttony.
Gluttony,
It's
yeah.
the same way with sex. I
Mhm.
realized that when you were no longer giving me what I needed and what I felt I wanted, it showed me that sex had become an idol. And
Right.
so I had to really sit in for many years. I didn't see it. All I did was blame you.
Mhm.
You're not doing what you're supposed to do. This is what you're supposed to. And the Bible says, da 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 da
Mhm.
da. Bible says in
You know
Genesis
what the
2,
Bible
there was
says?
no shame among them. The Bible says you supposed to honor your body is
That
not your
means he
own.
gonna hear your prayers.
Your prayers are hindered if you don't sleep with me. I listen, when I say I used every tactic, scripture,
Yes.
every anything I could use, I
Yes,
used
child.
it because
Foolishness.
brother man was desperate. And as we, of course, realized this, I didn't recognize that I was secretly developing rejection and bitterness over time
Mhm.
in this area.
Yeah.
Over time in this area, I'm internalizing rejection and I'm becoming bitter towards you. If you
Mhm.
want to know if you're bitter towards your spouse, how do you handle them when some doesn't go your way?
Mhm.
That's how you know what's really in your heart.
Right.
Can you keep serving them
Right.
even when you can't get nothing out of it?
Right. That's a real mature level to be on, that I can still serve you even when my needs are not being met. And very early in our marriage, you just weren't there. You just weren't there.
Mhm.
And, some of it I think is just being young and dumb.
Yeah,
Parts of it
you
is just being, still broken. Um, and it is what it is. It's not anything that I hold against your character. I've seen you mature out of that, but you're right. The absence of sex in your marriage, hear me, hear me, hear me, hear me, couples. It's rarely about the sex.
hmm
It's rarely about the sex. It's usually about something
the
else
emotional
that is
baggage.
showing up
hmm
in the bedroom.
hmm
And it's not always past trauma. Sometimes it's stuff that you guys have done to each other
Wow.
that has driven a wedge. I'm amazed at the number of couples that we talk to and give advice to, who the husband's like, she won't sleep with me, she won't sleep with me. But then when we talk to the wife, she's revealing things like he's cussing her out, calling her out of her name, putting his hands on her, distant, won't come home, everything else is a priority. You don't think maybe that spills into the bedroom?
Wow.
There's a whole lot of things that spill into the bedroom that, particularly for women, if our heart isn't right, it's hard for our bodies to respond.
Wow. Wow.
If our head isn't right, some of your wives are just way too stressed out
hmm
to even.
And you know what's interesting is I remember in the early years, we introduced other sources to try to create that intimacy. We
Mhm,
would sit and watch pornography together to get in the moment.
mhm,
And we recognize, wait a minute, this is introducing another spirit that I don't want. Would you want
mhm,
to speak to that? Because I think I've heard of couples saying, yo, we watch it together. We don't see no problem with it. But what I realized was that that's still a circumstance of sin, because what's happening is
third party.
you have another party. We say our rule of thumb is sin enters the bedroom when a third person shows up. That in your marriage, it is between both you and your spouse and God. That third person can be an ex, it could be somebody on a, someone that you are attracted or whatever the case may be, and that person you fantasize in your mind, but you're sleeping with your partner. So we had to realize, one, this is not something we want to establish in our marriage this early on, but we had to kind of work that out. You want to
Mhm,
speak to that for a second? I don't know why
absolutely.
I'm making mention of it,
Yeah, you're
but
just telling all our
I
business,
am telling all
all
the
of our
business.
business.
It's
Um,
been in live TV. It's what we do.
yeah, I remember that was my suggestion because I was trying to keep up
Mm,
from the beginning. I remember even on our wedding night, I was like, I'm not gonna be able to keep up with this man. Um, and we're having, middle-aged sex now. We were having 20-year-old strong back, in great shape, very
I got a
flexible.
strong back.
Um,
I'm in
um,
great shape.
you have a 45-year-old back. But um, and so I was like, I'm not going to be able to keep up with this man at this pace. So let me get creative. And that was my way of trying to
Yeah.
get creative. Did not realize that I was opening Pandora's box.
Oh
I was
God, you did.
opening something for you to now be interested in without me,
Mhm.
to be a substitute for when I was not available. And so I always say it's very dangerous. That's a very dangerous game to play. I'm not going to tell couples what they can and can't do in the bedroom. I'm just going to tell you introducing fantasies where other people are involved is a very dangerous game to play, because then later on, I was then being held to those same standards.
Mhm.
And there was no way that I could keep up. If I thought I had trouble keeping up before, now I'm having to, keep up with Debbie Does Dallas. And I ain't Debbie. So now we got a whole nother problem.
Let's move into the second thought here. I think is naturally leads into that. One of the things that I had to exercise during this process as we're figuring this out on our
Hmm.
own is prioritizing emotional connection through respect and patience. I
That was
the
huge.
Bible says, "Let patience have its perfect work." Um,
We had to bring that back into our
Jesus, oh
relationship.
my God,
We
yes,
had run out of patience with each other
way out of
concerning
paper.
this
I
area.
said way out of paper, but way out of patience.
Yes.
Yes.
And although we did not disrespect each other,
We handled each other rough.
yeah, yeah,
We did handle each
yeah.
other rough, and I realized that intimacy is more than you've helped communicate that to
Mhm.
me. Intimacy is more than just physical; it's
Yes,
emotional and spiritual too.
yes.
And that's one thing that you kept heralding.
Hmm.
That reconnecting emotionally was going to be the key for us to
Yes.
um, rebuild this physical intimacy. And so we just had to slow down and be patient with each
Yeah.
other. I had to slow down and be patient with you and serve you and honor you and love you and
Be
walk with
nice.
you and be nice because I was, oh my God, I think I'm a pretty nice guy. But once again, going back to how I had idolized sex, it had the power to change my character, my
Mm-hmm.
attitude, my disposition, just even in how I spoke. I mean,
Hmm.
I'm not, it's just that one area. I'm just like, and it was because once again, I feel like I was walking out of the house without an umbrella. So I'm gonna, if it's raining and it's pouring down, I have no protection. That's what intimacy being fulfilled in the area of our marriage was to me, is that I was able to be protected from the outpouring
Hmm.
of what's out there in those streets. You feel what I'm saying? So it just the constant frustration of saying no and no, you're not giving into that. No, so just having to learn the need for respect
Yeah.
and patience.
That reconnecting outside of the bedroom is key. I think sometimes we try to fix the bedroom in the bedroom,
Hmm.
and you can't. You've got to fix it outside of the bedroom. So we had to get to a place where there was hand holding, and there was hugging, and there was some softness and some
Yeah.
kindness, um that it wasn't just get in the bed and give me some, that we were rebuilding that friendship and that safety. Because for a moment I didn't feel safe, not safe like you were going to hit me or something like that. I didn't feel safe that I could even hold your hand without it turning into, let's go have sex.
Hmm.
I was like, I can't even let him touch me, because if I do, it's going to turn into let's have sex. So there was no level of intimacy outside of us having sex.
Yeah.
And I'm like, we come on now. We got to do better.
Yeah.
And so over time, we began to build that. Now, mind you, as long as we weren't talking about sex, or as long as it
Anything
wasn't
else?
time to go to bed, we were fine.
Fine. Perfectly
But
fine.
as it got closer to time to go to bed, it was like you could feel the tension in the
Go
room
through the
rise.
roof.
And that was crazy. So I'm glad that we got to a place now where we can connect and have intimate moments outside of it just being sex. Do you ever sit down and just talk to your spouse about something that's not bills and kids? Their hopes, their dreams, a funny movie, a meme. Do you ever just go and sit and have a cup of coffee with your spouse? Do you ever just walk through the mall and hold hands, walk around your neighborhood and hold hands? Do you ever just rub your spouse's shoulders and don't have to go down and rub something else?
Well,
I know you
we
still
got,
working on that.
yeah, I'm still
But
working on that.
so you just getting to connect with your partner in ways that are not sexual. And I think a lot of times people don't understand that you can be attracted to somebody and it doesn't have to only be some sort of sexual act
Mhm.
that comes out of touch or
I had to
whatever.
learn that, and I still am. I think you're just a beautiful person and inside out. I just
Oh,
love
here we
everything
go.
about you.
Here we go.
And I just cannot resist myself
Here we
when
go.
I get in your presence. Um,
Unless it's noon and you're working,
this is true. This is true. We can have coffee in the
then
breakfast
you
in
can
the
resist.
All right, something else. Our final thought, and we'll wrap up today's episode. If you're getting any value from the content being shared today, one, let us know in the comments. What are some of your takeaways thus far? And then two, turn on those alerts and go ahead and give us a like and a subscribe. We really, really appreciate it. We're a brand new channel. We're here providing content every Monday. So I promise you, we're going to keep you up to date, give you information that's not going to waste your time, prayerfully
Yeah.
build your marriage and your life. Okay, number three, I'm not sure that I knew how to do this, and I'm still working on it.
Mhm.
And it is, and I want to make sure I get it right. I want to stop apologizing for what you need.
Yeah.
Um, there's a sense of guilt that I felt sometimes when I would say, hey, what's up with later,
Right.
hey, you available, I'll use keywords. How are you sleepy? Or
How you
how
feeling?
you feeling, and so there was a sense of guilt because I used to feel guilty about expressing my needs. And we discovered because when our setup, I felt like I
Mhm.
spent time, really looking out for you and making sure that you're good just because of what you had come through. So I spent a lot of time more fixated on your needs versus my needs. And I would just suffer with my needs. And I had to learn, one, it's unhealthy because then it would come up in the therapy session. You're like, where's this coming
Come
from?
from.
And it was because I just never got a chance to express it. So in the area of sexual intimacy, I just had to learn just over time that I don't have to feel bad because I need something that's natural to me inside of marriage.
Mhm.
I mean, what are your thoughts?
No, I think you're right. And I think we've created an environment now where this subject does not become a topic where we are at each other's throats or causes, tension in the house. We can now talk about this
Yeah,
freely.
yeah.
And so you're now in a space where you can come and say, hey, whatever.
What's up with it?
Usually now I'm the one saying what's up with it.
Yeah, that's true.
But, one of the things but we're still working in this area. We
Hmm.
really are because even just the other night I was talking to you about romance. Do you remember that? I've
I
been
do.
talking about romance for 18 years.
Yes, yes.
Highly sexual individual, not a highly romantic individual. And that's just your
Mm.
makeup. You're just like, what? I
Don't
took a shower and I put on cologne and baby powder. Like, what's the problem?
don't do
Like,
don't do me.
why
Don't do me.
why are you not
I will
what
always
more romance do you need? I'm
I
right
will
here,
always
baby.
be fresh.
And I'm like, can we get some music, some candles, can we turn Martin off in the background? You know, can we set an atmosphere? So, so we're still working through and talking about our needs.
Hmm.
Where I used to shy away from the conversation, now I'm okay with saying, "Hey, let's talk about our sex life. You good?" I would never the first few years, I would never bring up that subject.
Hmm.
Now I'm bringing it up because I
Sure.
want to know what you need and I want you to know what I need.
Mm.
And so we're still working through,
We are. We are.
developing language and creating safe spaces where we can talk about that.
If today's conversation didn't do anything, it's my prayer that it opens up and creates an opportunity for couples who are watching to start the conversation. Start with where you currently are.
Mhm.
We also learned that having hard conversations sometimes need to take place outside of the home than inside of the home.
Right.
And many times this conversation would take place outside of the home,
Mhm.
so that when we made our way back home, it was a different environment.
Right.
And my prayer is, now, although therapy or counseling for us didn't work out quite the way we planned.
Just that one session.
Okay.
You and I still
Hmm.
go to marriage
We
counseling,
do.
not with this same
Hmm.
individual, but you and I do welfare check-ins with a
That's
therapist,
true.
an actual
That's
therapist.
true.
So I don't want people to feel like we're, poo-pooing on therapy. We are not. I think it's healthy for couples to have a therapist, even if you just check in a couple of times a year to make sure that you guys are good.
So, guys, we love you all. Thank you so much for checking out yet another episode of Bennett Life TV. Let us know in the comments some of your takeaways. We're praying for you. We want you to hang in there. If God can get us through it, he can get you through it as well. There is hope for a sexless marriage. I believe in the power of redemption, and he is no respecter of persons. If he can turn it around for Dana and I, he can definitely turn it around for you. All right. Talk to you guys soon. On to the next episode. Stay in faith. We are indeed praying for you.
Yes.